Malcolm X, A Journey from Racism to Faith. Malcolm X, whose real name was Malcolm Little, was born in 1925 in Omaha, Nebraska, to a poor African-American family. His father was an activist fighting for the rights of black people, but the family faced severe racism from extremist white groups like the Ku Klux Klan. This led to his father being brutally murdered when Malcolm was young, and their home being burned, forcing the family to move frequently in search of safety. Over time, the family completely disintegrated, with Malcolm and his siblings sent to different foster homes. He grew up in poverty and neglect, experiencing the bitterness of racial injustice in America. In his teenage years, he drifted into a life of crime in Boston, joining street gangs and engaging in illegal activities like theft and gambling. In 1946, he was arrested and sentenced to 10 years in prison. During his time in prison, Malcolm began to read extensively, determined to educate himself and become more aware of the political and social struggles of his people. While in prison, Malcolm encountered fellow inmates who introduced him to the Nation of Islam, a religious and political movement aimed at improving the conditions of African Americans by advocating for separation from white society. The movement promoted a form of black nationalism and presented Islam as a religion that could liberate black people from oppression and slavery. Malcolm began corresponding with Elijah Muhammad, the leader of the Nation of Islam, who encouraged him to adopt the movement's beliefs. Malcolm came to believe that the teachings of the Nation of Islam were the only way to free black people from the systemic racism and oppression they faced in America. Upon his release in 1952, Malcolm became a spokesperson for the Nation of Islam, quickly gaining fame for his fiery speeches and sharp criticism of the racist system in the United States. He delivered passionate speeches advocating for black dignity, independence, and revolution against injustice. During this phase, Malcolm fully embraced the Nation of Islam's ideology, including the idea that whites were enemies by nature and that black people should separate themselves into independent communities. His charisma and leadership attracted thousands of African Americans to the movement. However, despite his significant influence, Malcolm began questioning whether the teachings of the Nation of Islam truly aligned with authentic Islam. By 1964, Malcolm X grew increasingly disillusioned with Elijah Muhammad's leadership and the Nation of Islam's teachings. He discovered that the movement promoted ideas inconsistent with true Islam, such as black supremacy. Additionally, he was shocked by the personal corruption of some of the movement's leaders, prompting him to break away and seek the truth about Islam. In the same year, Malcolm decided to perform the Hajj pilgrimage to Mecca. This journey marked a pivotal turning point in his life. In Mecca, he was deeply moved by the sight of millions of Muslims of all races and colors coming together in total unity, without any discrimination based on race, color, or language. Through this spiritual experience, Malcolm realized that Islam was a universal religion advocating true equality among all human beings, regardless of their backgrounds. He met Muslims from all over the world, Africa, Asia, and Europe, and felt a profound sense of brotherhood. In one of his letters from Mecca, he wrote, "I have seen Muslims of all colors, from blue-eyed blondes to black-skinned Africans, standing together as equals. Islam has shown me that racism can be eradicated if people accept the religion of God." After performing the Hajj, Malcolm adopted the name El-Hajj Malik el-Shabazz and returned to the United States with an entirely new perspective. He abandoned his previous beliefs in racial separation and began advocating for the unity of all people under the banner of Islam. Upon his return from Mecca, Malcolm X declared his belief in true Islam and began spreading its universal message of equality and tolerance. He established a new organization called the Muslim Mosque Incorporated, focusing on promoting the authentic teachings of Islam, free from the racial and separatist ideologies of the Nation of Islam. Malcolm started delivering speeches that called for unity between black and white people, emphasizing that Islam offered a solution to the racial injustice plaguing American society. He also began speaking out about human rights, not just civil rights, becoming a globally recognized voice against oppression. Despite his transformation, Malcolm faced numerous threats from Nation of Islam leaders, who viewed him as a traitor, especially after he exposed their corruption. On February 21, 1965, Malcolm X was assassinated while giving a speech in New York City by 3 members of the Nation of Islam.